do you think he's even back on the team next year, Matt?
Well, you know what? I don't see why he wouldn't be.
What do you think the right number is for Brock Purdy?
Well, that's a great question. I guess probably $50 million per year. You know, I don't think there's any question. He's the guy. I mean, 49ers have been trying since Steve Young, I guess, you know, to find a franchise quarterback, a guy who's going to be there for the long term. You know, Jeff Garcia made some Pro Bowls 3 in a row. And right now he's having a middle of the pack NFL starting quarterback season. Like middle of the pack quarterbacks make a boatload of money. You know, if you're talking 32 starting quarterbacks, if you're in that 14 to 17 range or 13 to 18, you're still making tons and tons of money. So my guess is, you know, maybe a little bit in excess of 50 million. They're not going to make him play out the final year of the contract. It's just, you know, that wouldn't be the way to go. They owe him. He's been playing. I mean, I think he's the 86th highest paid quarterback in the NFL this season. One of the lowest paid.
It really is.
One of the lowest paid players on the team.
Yeah.
You know, Nick Zakel is making more than him.
He's officially given it the office. He has. He deserves a raise. But, you know, you talk about Super Bowl windows remaining open and the great opportunity they had with what's amazing is the Niners in the blink of an eye went from most Pro Bowlers in all of football and the most talent in all of football and an offense that scared everybody to death to this. Mm-hmm. And it didn't even take a year. And that's how quickly things can change in sports. Really, it's incredible to see how in the wrong direction it's all gone.
Yeah, and Damon, I mean, but look at those Pro Bowl guys. They're a reason. Like they haven't been on the field. Like I can't think.
You're right, but I guess maybe I'm thinking of just too much through the prism of what Debo used to be, what he is now, what McCaffrey was last year due to injuries. He hasn't been this year, and how quickly everything can change. And what was amazing to me is that the reemergence of Christian McCaffrey made this team forget that they actually had the NFL's leading rusher on their own team. Yeah. And this is like, if everyone's got Kyle Shanahan complaints, my number one Shanahan complaint is that he gets so fixated on one guy, he can't see behind him. And I think that he probably burnt McCaffrey's wick all the way down to the nub before last year's Super Bowl. It's why McCaffrey didn't have a particularly good Super Bowl. And Jordan Mason might have been capable of giving you some production last year that was similar to this year. And, you know, I'm talking about 5 yards a carry, which is a really nice measuring stick for any young running back in football. And, you know, now McCaffrey's hurt and you think, oh, well, Jordan Mason's going to get an opportunity to reestablish himself. Unfortunately, he gets hurt with a high ankle sprain. They're both now on IR. And that brings us to Garendo, who struggled in September, had a good October, and then was totally forgotten about in the month of November. And now they're going to have to go to him. It's just really weird the way Kyle went from I don't have a bell cow running back to I have a bell cow running back to now I have a running back that I'd rather not even play.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's all.
I'm not even sure there's a question in there.
Yeah, no, I mean, he had this year. Mason will end up as the team's leading rusher. What is this? The 8th year of Shanahan, so that means 7 different leading rushers in 8 years. The only back-to-back guy is McCaffrey. And so it would lead you to think that, it's always been a running backs by committee. And it was for several years until he got McCaffrey. And then it's just like he has this toy that he loves to play with. And there were opportunities, last season and to just mix in Jordan Mason, or last year it would have been, I guess, Mitchell or whomever would have been the backup guy. And I guess it doesn't take much, right? I mean, just like whatever, 3 extra carries per game, something like that. Just a little bit of a workload.
Keep him involved, keep him invested.
Don't
lose the young player.
The one thing with Mason is when McCaffrey was coming back, Mason had that shoulder injury.
Right.
So maybe they also felt like, well, we can kind of get him back. But, as we see in the NFL, I mean, I had no idea that Mason was injured in that game. We knew that he went in for concussion evaluation. The 49ers did not know he had a high ankle sprain until the following day. So it could happen on any play. And for McCaffrey, the injury that he sustained had nothing to do with the Achilles. So, I think reducing risk, spreading the wear and tear around a little bit. Yeah, I mean, all those are areas that were talking points last year. And of course, again, they're talking points this year. I think Brock Purdy is one of those guys that the closer you're to him, the more impressed you are by him. And even in this down year, it's not a bad season. A lot of stuff have been working against the 49ers. Their vibe's been off, all this stuff, no mojo.
I mean, you got tragedy in the locker room now. Tragedy with Trent Williams and what he and his family have gone through, and Charvarius Ward, and it's just
yeah.
Sometimes it ain't your year, and that's the way this one feels. Like Debo, though, really does feel like the sole embodiment of all that is wrong with the Niners. When Debo's going right, the Niners are a monster. When Debo's going wrong, they're less than that, and it feels like he has just vanished from being a difference maker this entire season. Do you think he's even back on the team next year, Matt?
Well, you know what? I don't see why he wouldn't be. And because his salary is so low, they redid his contract. I think it would cost them more to get rid of him at this point, but he's back. I mean, here would be the thinking, he's back. And like I said, his base salary isn't much. He would be entering the final year of his contract. And what do we know about guys on the final years of their contract?
I love a walk year. I always love a walk year for a player.
They show up in great shape. What would a team give you in return for Deebo Samuel? And if you trade him, I think it hurts you on the salary cap as well.
Like, I don't even know if you could get a sixth for him the way that he's been playing this year.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to think what I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but I just think it costs the 49ers way more for him to be off the team than it is for him to be on the team. And so I think he'll be back. I don't know what it would look like. I mean, the guys who, with their current contracts that you think are going to be back for sure, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, I think Deebo, obviously McCaffrey, Ayuk and Lenore, there's no reason, I don't think, to get rid of two of their absolute best players, George Kittle and Fred Warner. Their salaries are up there. Two guys that I have extreme question marks about, Javon Hargrave and Kyle Juszczyk. And we didn't even talk. I just mentioned Warner's name. I mean, here's a guy that, their best defensive player, and he's been playing with a broken ankle.
A broken ankle that has not appeared on the injury report. I think the 49ers should be fined millions or at least repay my gambling debts, because there's a lot of weeks I'm laying off on the Niners had I known Fred Warner had a broken ankle. Shit. It seems like they kind of fibbed their way through that one a little.
So are you saying that you deserve the $1 million? Is that how much money you've lost?
No, I'm saying I hope they get dinged $1 million, or at least repay my $100 or so that I've lost over the year on them.
As I understand it, because he's been a full go in practice, that there's been no reason to put him on the injury report. And so he hasn't appeared as, questionable or doubtful. He's played in every game. The first couple of weeks after that injury, they were listing him as limited in practice and so on and so forth. But since then, it's my understanding he's been a full go in practice. So I guess that's the loophole.
Let's wrap up with the fact there's got to be a new special teams coordinator. Schneider cannot survive this. It's been a disaster. I am not a fire that guy. You and I have talked on the radio for almost 20 years together. I'm not a fire that guy. Fire that guy. Jesus. I've never seen a team want to be bad as special teams and as bad on special teams as the 49ers appear to want to be every single week.
To his credit, they found a different way to mess up. I almost used another word instead of mess every week. So let's give them points for creativity.
If creativity matters, we have
I would think
Picasso of special teams.
Brian Schneider might be a great special teams coach. He might, have had the resume and everything else. But yeah, at some point you just have to say, let's try something different. They did it a couple of years ago. Kyle Shanahan fired his buddy, Hightower, and brought in Brian Schneider, and that simply hasn't worked out. and I don't know what the solution is. I mean, a couple of years ago, they went out in free agency and signed a couple special teams guys, George Odom and Oren Burks. So I would say that they need to do the same thing. They need to look at the special teams failures, and they have been absolute failures in every imaginable way. I mean, we don't even have time to list
all of it.
the ways.
All of it. Running lanes, everything.
Yeah.
It's all bad. If you are following this, if you're watching this on my channel, go subscribe to Matt Maiocco's YouTube channel and do it right now. Matt, great to see you, brother.
All right. Thanks, Damon.
Show live on YouTube every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.